Hi there, I'm Lindsay of Gingercake Patterns, and today I want to share with you how I made this really fun, cute, easy fabric wreath. This is gathered fabric. I made it from my scraps, and it's a really fun seasonal project to make that you can make in maybe under an hour. So let's follow along and get started. Okay, I'm going to show you how to make that the wreath, the base of the wreath. What I decided to use, because I wanted to be able to open it up to stick the fabric tube around it and gather it, I had this large embroidery hoop, and it's the perfect thing to use because it opens up, it's a little bit flexible, and then you can kind of close it at the end, so it's just perfect. But I needed to kind of bulk it up. And one time I made one and the embroidery hoop broke, so I'm gonna add this wire for a little extra security there so it doesn't break. And to bulk it up, I decided to use what I had around, and that was these grocery bags, from the grocery store, this plasticky stuff. And what you can do is cut them in half to make them. I used about 8, so I have 16 pieces here. And I'm just going to wrap around. Don't cover up the little tube there. The little thing that attaches the embroidery hoop back together. But I'm just going to wrap around. Doesn't have to be any kind of perfect job. These half-size grocery bags, and you can see it gives it some padding and kind of bulks it up. You want to wrap them fairly tight so that it's not, super loose, because we're trying to pad the hoop here. Okay, that should have taken you about 5 minutes to wrap all those grocery bags around. And the next thing you want to do is to secure the grocery bags with a long piece of fabric. You could also use like duct tape or even just look for something around that you have that you could kind of wrap around. I have this is like a canvas, a drop cloth fabric that I have. So I'm just going to wrap around all my bags. You can see how it's coming together to start looking like a wreath, more of a wreath form, like this. And just keep going. You could, cut these in half so that you don't have to deal with this long amount of fabric to wrap all the way around, and then kind of glue it together. Also for these bags, you could, another thing that works instead of using the bags is using like fleece or some kind of scraps that are kind of thick, like a fleece or a batting or something that you have hanging around you want to get rid of. So I'm just going to wrap this around and be right back. You wrap yours around. Okay, I have the fabric wrapped around to secure the bags, and now we have a nice thick wreath form that comes apart so that we can stick the fabric tube around it. So I decided I wanted to use some of my scraps, and I wanted to do a mixture of grays. And I already laid these out in order, but I want to show you how I did it. Now you could do, I've made that all in this fabric, or you could do it all in green fabric, or all in brown fabric, or all even in burlap or something. But I decided I wanted to do it in kind of a mixture of grays to give it a little bit more texture. These are all just from my scrap bin. And if you lay them out, you can kind of see that I have lightness and darkness mixed together so that we have a sort of a pretty texture when it all comes together in the end. Like this. I'm going to put this one up here. So you see the light, the dark and the light and the medium all mixed together, and then I'm going to go over to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew these edges right sides together so that it's one long strip of fabric. And then it should be about I like to do it about 3 times 36. So what is that? 118. I don't know if that's right. 3 times 36, we'll put the number here so that you know, is about the length you want it to be, so you have a real nice gather around this embroidery hoop. So I'm going to head over to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew all these pieces right sides together. Okay, here is the long piece all sewn together, and I went ahead and pressed my seams out on each of the pieces. And you can see I want it to be at least, it is 118 inches, so I want it to be at least that long. 1, 2, and 3. So it's a little longer. If yours ends up being a little longer, that's no problem. You just don't really want it to be shorter, because otherwise it won't gather really nicely on the wreath. And again, this wreath, I don't think I said this before, but I'll make sure to put it in the notes. This is from an embroidery hoop that is, it is about 12 inches. A 12-inch embroidery hoop. With all the stuffing, it becomes a 14-inch embroidery hoop. So now I'm going to go back to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew my entire long strip together to make a tube of, and the tube just like this. I'm going to pin it. I'm not even going to pin it. I'm just going to sew it together to make a nice long tube. And you want to give yourself a nice seam allowance so that you don't have any holes when you turn it, when you turn it inside out. So I'm going to head over. I'm going to give myself probably about a 3/4 inch seam allowance and sew this, make a nice long tube, and then I'll show you how I turn it inside out. Now I've sewed the whole tube in half, right sides together, and now you have to turn it inside out. And the way you do that is it's wide enough that you can, you just have to kind of keep working it like this. You can reach your hand in. This should take you about 5 minutes. You just keep reaching in and turning the whole thing, or actually less than 5 minutes, the whole thing inside out like this. Okay, so do that, and then I'll be right back. So I'm going to start the gather. This is kind of like the fun part. And you just start slipping it over, and it starts to gather together. We want to kind of get this piece all the way to the end. And start gathering. Okay, so you go ahead and do that too. This should take a few minutes just to, you gently just keep pulling it down over the whole wreath to make a fun gathered look. See how it's gonna all kind of gather in on itself like this. So we'll be right back after we've done this part, and then we'll close the wreath up. Now that we have that fabric tube gathered all around the wreath, it's time to close the opening. And you want to just take the pieces of wire, and they can just kind of stick in. And what you want to do, don't worry too much about them, they just get hidden underneath there. What you want to do is take these, from the embroidery hoop, this is where this little screw goes in, and this will close up. Now if you don't have your little screw, you can just kind of tape that closed with duct tape or something. But this screw goes in right here, and that will close up the whole piece. I'm going to finish that in just a minute, but you just use your fingers to close it. And then just take the fabric and close it up like this. And you have your wreath. It's very cute. So next I'm going to show you how I tie the bow. I do a fabric bow. You don't have to do a fabric bow. You could do a variety of things. You could do burlap or just ribbon or whatever you'd like. Or just leave it like this. I think that's adorable. You hang it like this. Okay, I'll be right back, and I'll show you how I tie my fabric bow. Okay, here you can see that I closed up that opening of the embroidery hoop with that screw, and I got that nice and tight. And then I just have inserted, I'm just folding these fabrics together in the opening so you can't even see it's there. And here is what I'm using as my ribbon. I made a fabric tie here. It started out as 4 inches by the width of fabric, about 42 inches. So it started out as 4 by 42 inches. And then I did I folded over 1/4 of an inch and pressed, and then again another 1/4 of an inch and pressed. And I did that to both edges. And then I made my little pointed ends. This is the tie that I use in my modern folksy bunny pattern, and I will attach a link to that pattern. And then also I made a YouTube video all about making a ribbon, like a bow, like I'm about to show you, and you can watch that too. So I'm just gonna, this is just regular ribbon. It's more of like a fabric type ribbon that I got somewhere. I love the color of the green. So I'm gonna tie my bow right here over the where the opening is, so that just to make sure that that is secure. And again, watch that video I made for the Modern Folksy Bunny to see how I make my tie. But it's this method makes a nice bow tie. You make the tie, and then you do the first loop down below like this, and the second loop comes over and then comes through here, and you get a nice casual looking bow like this. I chose these colors because I have a lot of daffodils blooming right now. I thought it'd look cute on my front door. But there you go. You can see the bow is kind of nice and casual. I did it kind of up here in this corner so that it doesn't look, you can also do the bow down here or up at the top or wherever you'd like. But this is how I decided to do mine. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just tie a string, make a loop right here so that I have something to hang on my front door. But this is it. And I really love how it looks. It's casual and fun and used up my scrap fabrics. And I think it'll be a really sweet seasonal look for my front door. I hope you get to make one too. Thanks so much.